I asked the people around the table, and there was 4 of them, would they, to answer the question, what would you tell people about living here? And there was some silence, and I said, this was the first time we'd actually handed the materials to the residents and just said, you know how this is and what kind of things there are there. When you want to say something, why don't you just figure out what you want to put down on the underlay? So at the top, there were 4 people, and that put down actually after the resident said the following thing. She said, and this is like, what would you tell people about living here? And she said, people here believe in each other and like each other. And which was a sentence that just stunned me when she said it, because I thought, oh gosh, that's just very insightful about what she was perceiving. So I said, well, how would you put that down on the underlay? And she said, well, I think I need some people. So we got the little container with the people on there, and she put 4 people down, which would not be unusual for people sitting around a table in one of the homes to have 4 people around it. And then she said, and we said, well, how would you show that they liked each other? So then she moved all of the pieces so that they were holding hands. And then she said, well, I think we need to add a dog in here. So we added the dog, even though in the facility we don't have pets, but that was her way of saying, this is how people believe in each other and like each other here. They hold hands and are together and have something that they love. Now, a number of the residents actually have either baby dolls or stuffed toys. This particular person has a stuffed toy that looks like a dog. So you'll often see the residents like holding a baby doll or holding a stuffed toy. And so it's not that unusual that she would have put a pet in there, I guess, really thinking about it. So then we went to the next person, and she has been a fairly recent addition to the memory center. And she said, we are trying new things here. That was what she said. And then I said, well, how would you show that? And she's a person who really likes the outdoors. And so she said, well, there's a lot of worms, and they're very interesting. And I said, well, what would you put down in order to show a worm? And so she picked up those wavy lines. Now, initially she put down only a couple of them, and then she decided that the worms were growing in number, and there was even more interesting things to look at about the worms. So she kept on adding worms onto the underlay. But that was to say, we're trying new things. The story of the invitation includes having chocolate cake and lemon tarts and strawberries. And so one of the men, well, it was the man that was there, he had noticed that the person across from him really wasn't talking a great deal. And that happens quite a bit with people who are there for the first or second time. They'll look at the story and they'll say, I don't know, or I don't know, or it doesn't remind me of anything. But this one, the only thing that the story had reminded her of was picking strawberries. And so this gentleman said, well, we eat strawberries here. And then he looked over at her really directly and kind of smiled, and she smiled back at him. And so it was a nonverbal interaction, but it was showing to me that he was really paying attention to the people around the table as the story was happening, and then had actually included it in the what would you tell people about living here? And then we went back and somebody said, well, you know, it's an overcast day. And so this resident wanted to put down that it was overcast. And the first thing she did was to put down the blue dots, because she said those are the clouds. And then we looked at, well, was there something else in the box that might show the clouds? And that's when the blobs were added, the gray blobs. And then she said, but you know, the sun comes through. So the yellow was put down for the sun. And so that was just to note that weather does affect what the residents feel about the place that they live. Then the other section of that underlay is a story that was told separately by somebody at the table. And she was talking about, and it was kind of confusing initially. I mean, I didn't really understand what the story was, but we just kept on playing with it. And she was talking about her child was going to graduate from high school and go to college. But she also mentioned that her daughter had come in and cleaned her room and prepared her room before she ended up moving into the facility. And so then she got into a story about we needed something to look at. And so the animals that were on there was because she wanted to look at cattle, and then we had to make a rest area. And so that the little area with the blocks is the rest area that we put two people on talking to each other. And again, we had a supervisor of the two children on the hill that was up to the thing. But what was interesting about that, she could not put words to, like the other couple of people were able to put their sentence together first and then pick whatever they wanted to show about it. She just had to tell the story, and then we kept on playing with it. And at the end, what she said was, what we live is in our hearts. And I was so touched by that. Because, you know, so often when you go into a dementia unit, you just think, what are they thinking? What is going on behind their heads, behind their eyes? And in this case, after all of this was, down on the thing, she said, that's what was most important. What we live is in our hearts. Mm-hmm. So really, in response to the question, what would you tell people who are living here? The sort of descriptions that they had would be, people believe in each other and like each other. We're trying new things. We eat strawberries. We notice what the weather is like. And we have family members who come in sometimes to prepare spaces. We have spaces for activities and spaces for rest. And at the end of it, one of the people, I said, was there anything else anybody would like to add? And she said, this is a nice little story and people are happy.
Wow.
It was just great. So then what was interesting at the end, because we've been very careful about taking things off in a certain order from the underlay. And when they took their pieces that they had laid down off the underlay, they almost did it in reverse order. So they have noticed how things get put down on the underlay and how things get taken back up again as well. So that was the first time we tried to actually do something around a question afterwards, and we'll try and do that, in the future as well.